Bummer. I had to think quick, so I suggested that she call him first thing in the morning and say she couldn't make it. She made the call. Last November, we celebrated our 51st anniversary. During our rather short courtship, I learned that she and her family were devout Catholics. I spent a lot of time around her family and became aware of the importance of their faith in their daily life. My wife's parents went to Mass daily before opening their store on Main Street in Manchester. I admired their commitment to their faith and their devotion to Jesus Christ in all aspects of their life. Of course, they were not perfect people, but they were peaceful, contented people that knew how to have fun and enjoy life. And I admired the fact that they never tried to influence me in any way. Of course, I knew they were praying for my conversion, but they never talked to me about it. Ann and I had a discussion about our possible future together as a family, and we both agreed that if we are one in our faith, our chances of a good marriage will be a lot greater. I hadn't been out of college that long, so I told her that I would check out the Catholic faith. I would check out the church. I was very smart at that time in my life, so I thought that checking it out would be simple. Here's what I would do. I would find out what to do, when to do it, learn the prayers, and show up. I attended a couple of formal meetings and then settled in with a priest, one-on-one. He was just a few years older than I. And I peppered him with all the usual questions non-Catholics have about the church. He told me to ask anything. Don't hold back, and don't worry about offending him or the church. He was wonderful. He never backed away and always was kind and gentle. After I'd gone through my laundry list of the usual questions, he started to ask me some questions. He asked me questions such as, what did Jesus mean to me personally? He asked me questions like, did I pray? And if so, what about and how did I pray? He asked me questions like, what did I know about the Trinity? I hadn't heard much about God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in one being. What did I know about the sacraments of the church, he asks. Then the real teaching began. I was no longer asking questions. I was listening. He went through the scriptures to verify his teachings. He went through the sacraments one by one and in depth. And most important of all, he and I began praying together. God was beginning to move from my head to my heart. Emphasis on beginning. Many people will tell you of a specific time and date when they experienced the adult baptism of the Holy Spirit, but mine was not that way. My experience of relationship came in small doses and mainly through other people and events. I was becoming excited about this Catholic Church. I told my wife-to-be that maybe I think I belonged in this church. The Eucharist was new to me. To receive the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ into my body was awesome. To be reconciled with a forgiving and loving God through confession was overwhelming. This was pre-Vatican II. The Mass was in Latin, and I loved it. I joined the church in August 1961, and we were married in November of 1961, and a new journey had begun. Our first child was born 9 months and 5 days after our wedding. 19 months later, we had another son. When our firstborn was 4 months old, I left the engineering field to go into the insurance business. I left a nice salary career to living on commission. I was working hard to build my business, and Ann was home taking care of the home front. She was doing a great job, and I was gradually building up my business. In 1967, we had our daughter, and a great daughter she is. Life seemed to be on track. In 1969, I was transferred to Davenport to manage the office there. There was a large demand on my time, and even larger on Ann's with the kids. We were active in church and attended everything. We had great kids and were part of a faith community. Through some of her friends, Ann began to go to a prayer group in the convent in Bettendorf. She had a profound experience with her faith, which led to a major change in her life. She couldn't stop talking about Jesus Christ and couldn't get enough of the scriptures. I could see the new joy she had found in her life, but I was critical of it, and I put her down. Gradually, I came to realize that this new thing she had found was something that maybe I should seek. And her prayer group apparently felt the same way, because I ended up going to a Cursillo retreat in Rock Island, Illinois, shortly after that. After 4 days of rather intense study and prayer, I found myself asking the question that even though I knew quite a bit about God, the question was, where was he in my life? Or was he truly in my life at all? It got my attention. Or should I say the Holy Spirit got my attention? And I began a rather lengthy search. For some of us, it takes longer than others. In fact, for me, it goes on through all my life, as you will see. When our kids were 6, 9, and 11, we moved back to Cedar Rapids and found a new prayer group that was citywide and met at St. Wenceslas. I'm sure some of you probably were there. I was starting over, kind of, and my commitments were way out of whack. I was living in the world and not in the Spirit, and I still didn't get it. Then one afternoon in 1974, I was in my office by myself and suddenly hit the wall. I came to a complete stop and I couldn't do a thing. It sort of scared me. It was as if I were battery powered and the battery just went dead, and I didn't know what to do. So I called Ann, told her where I was and what was going on. She says, "Hang up and wait. I'll call you back." 10 minutes later, she called me, told me to drive to this address on the west side of Cedar Rapids, and she would meet me there. We went to that house, and there were 3 couples from that prayer group who had gathered together on this very short notice for the express purpose of praying for me and over me. See how slow I am? It was a profound experience and very cleansing. Tears of sorrow and tears of joy. And I hearkened back to Revelations 3:20, and I opened the door and invited him in. The next few years were good. We were growing in our faith, but of course life was not perfect. Our kids were in their teens and experiencing all the things that teens face. When our eldest son was a senior in high school, he began to experience some difficult times in his life. He graduated from high school and went on to college. During this time in his life, you might say his life spun out of control. And in that process, I discovered that I was not and had not been the father to him that God created me to be. The result was a troubled young man. He was near death 3 times. Twice he attempted to take his own life, and once he was beaten, causing a severe concussion. He was in the intensive care unit all 3 times. By the grace of God and the All Saints Faith community, he is alive and well today. Right there. The All Saints Faith Community prayed for us when we couldn't. The faith community from All Saints showed up in the intensive care units and prayed for his recovery over his bed. More lessons to learn. During this time, I was giving advice, not in love, but in anger, to my son about drinking. Then the Holy Spirit said, "Woe to me." He says, "You are giving advice with a drink in your hand." It became abundantly clear to me that alcohol consumption was too big a part of my life. I discovered that for me, alcohol was a thief. It stole my money, it stole my time, it stole my health, and it stole my relationships. It was clear that I had to get it out of my life, period. It was a bad habit. But it was such a part of my social life that I wasn't sure I could get rid of it all by myself. Having made a few somewhat feeble attempts and failing, I was lying in bed late in the night, and I said to God, "It seems to me I'm unable to get rid of this by myself, so I'm going to give it to you, and asking that you take away any desire I have to drink." And he answered, "I quit 30 years ago." Does God answer prayer? All through our 51 years, the Catholic Church has offered to our family numerous opportunities for us to grow in our faith. We have been on Cursillo retreats, Christian experience weekends, marriage encounters, Bible studies, Alpha program, Retorno weekend, numerous retreats and seminars, and it just gets better. We attended the Holy Spirit Conference at Notre Dame and Pittsburgh, and closer to home, the Holy Spirit Conference in Peoria, Illinois, almost every year. And I just read in The Witness about the new archdiocesan program called Impact. I would encourage everyone to look into that. Read about it in the April 21st issue of The Witness. All these are put on by our church. Each time we get involved with something, we are again reminded to invite Christ into our lives, as we've heard over and over and over again. Invite him in daily. Seeds planted in the past begin to grow and bear fruit. Fruits of the Holy Spirit are everywhere. Read Galatians 5:22 and 23. We discovered along the way that as soon as Christ was placed in the center of our marriage, life became more complete. We are aware that life can sometimes throw us in the ditch. Life is not perfect and not without problems, but we do look eagerly ahead to see what God will place in our path. Our journey is not complete, and our church and our faith will lead us along to that completion. And I can truly say that my Catholic faith is more important to me than the love my wife has for me, and she will say the same. Opening the door and inviting Christ to be the center of your life, to me, is a lifelong process and very exciting. Now, this whole talk may seem to be a litany of problems, but I can assure you the joys of this life have far outweighed the sorrows. And let me sum up two things. My mother, who was an integral part of this story, was 100 years old on May 9th, 11 days ago. We were up there celebrating her party with 300 of her closest friends. Last year, when my mother and I were together alone, I asked her a question. I said, if she could go back and change any part of her life, what would it be? She hesitated. She stared out into space. She was quiet for quite a while. Finally, she looked me in the eye and said, not a thing. She said, this was God's path for my life, and I embrace it. The second thing is, remember that boy I spoke about with the struggles in his life? Well, as I said earlier, he's sitting right there. He's no longer a boy, and he walks with God. Our other son and a daughter we are very proud of are sitting there as well, and one grandchild. Graduated from Xavier yesterday. As I grow older and am ever more aware of my own imperfections, I am increasingly grateful to have a relationship with the one who has experienced what it means to be human. From my smallest misstep to my worst choices, I know that none of my actions are beyond the understanding, compassion, and forgiveness of a God who is not distant or remote, but intimately bound to me in love, as he is to all of you. That's my story, up to now. And all of you have a story too. Every one of you has a story to tell. Jesus wants us to share it with each other. So share your story every chance you get. And to end up this talk, we're now going to stand up and sing a song. John's going to play the guitar, and we're going to sing out of number 377 in the book, Here I Am, Lord.
I, the Lord of thee and sky, I have heard my people cry. I who bear the dark and sin, my hand will sing. I who made the stars of the night, I will make their darkness bright. Who will bear my light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my arms. I, the